This is a 1961 Mercury Comet, and the first thing you need to know is that it's technically not a Mercury. That's because before the 1960, when this car was being designed, it was originally designed to be an Etzel Comet, and of course Etzel went down the tubes, so they had to de-Etzelfy it, and as such there is no Mercury badging on the car anywhere, so it's not actually branded as a Mercury, but it was sold through Mercury dealerships as just the Comet. So some specs. In 1960, this car had a 144 cubic inch straight six, making about 90 horsepower, and that wasn't enough. So in 1961, they upgraded it to a 170 cubic inch, which is about 2.8 liters, straight six, with about 100 horsepower. Power is transferred to the rear wheels by this nice column-shifted 3-speed manual gearbox, which is good because another option would have been a 2-speed automatic, which would have been tragically slow. With this 3-speed, it's only, I'm never going to be in a hurry again slow. You can actually get up and moving. So what's it drive like? Well, this is my steering. It's very, very tight and connected. The suspension is very comfortable in a I'm only going to go in a straight line and never turn again sort of way. I'm jiggling the horn button around, which I just noticed. It's very oh no, I've done a bad thing. Oh no. Crap. How did I do that? Oh no, I've taken the horn ring off. Get back on there. There we go. I did it. Let's talk about style real quick, because that's where this car shines. This was the cheapest Mercury you could get, even though it's not technically a Mercury. It's the cheapest Mercury you could get in 1961, and you'd never know it if you had no idea, because the dash is nice and stylish. It has this nice painted metal curved dash. You got these nice instruments. You have the very stylized taillights. The whole car is very well styled for being the cheapest car you could get in the Mercury lineup. It doesn't even have a radio. It has no options, as far as I know. I mean, white wall tires or something like that may have been an option, but the passenger side fender mirror is giving me a nice, glorious view of the side of the car. So I'm guessing that's all it's meant to do, so you can constantly look outside and see what you're driving, because I can't see anything other than maybe 2 inches of the road behind me. It's very useful.
Style was so important back then, and it's very important in this car too, because if you had bought this new and drove it around every day, you'd rarely look around yourself and think, man, I'm a horrible cheapskate. Whereas today, if you buy a cheap car, say for instance a Chevy Spark, you'd look around the car every day while you're driving and think, why'd they call this a Spark if it's not electric? And then you'd think, man, if only I'd been less cheap and spent a little bit more money, I wouldn't be driving around this horrible piece of crap every day.
This is a nice place to be. The doors are nicely stylized. The bench seat is large and comfortable, which is very American, and it's huge. This car is big, and I say that enthusiastically because this is the smallest car you could get from Ford in 1961, and I'm not making this up. It's larger than every single car I have except a pickup. The gap between America and Europe in 1961 was enormous. This would have been a large car in Europe, without a doubt. And here, it's small. Does that tell you anything about American roads? They're gigantic, long, dead straight, vast stretches of concrete and pavement. And this car was made to fit them. This car was made back when safety regulations and fuel economy and all those other things that ruin style were in very little effect, and as such, you could have things like this. The mirrors are fender mounted. I suspect that's because fenders have more strength than the A-pillar, and they're very sharp on the front, and as you can see, right in front of them is a crosshair. Now, the average person would probably think, oh, that's just a strange styling design, but no, I think that they're right in front of the mirrors here. That's the pedestrian targeting system, so you can line it up with the crosshairs here and then just take out their face with this very sharp sloping mirror. Oh, you gotta hear this. You hear that? Hear that crackle? Oh yeah, it's probably a hole in the exhaust, but I'm gonna say it's cool. All the controls in this car are incredibly light. The steering, I'm barely moving right now, and the steering is super light. It's manual, it's like a bus really, but it's so light. The brake pedal is extremely heavy, but the clutch is very light. It also has very little feel to it, as I am now demonstrating by taking off terribly. You see how much the steering moved when it did? It isn't the fastest car in the world, but for the cheapest car they made and I guess the slowest car they made, really, it's not bad at all. Now, if I wanted to keep up in modern traffic, that'd be another story, but it's a nice place to be. Granted, this is 1961, and there are zero safety features on it. I have no seatbelts. This is a bench seat, no headrest. I would probably smash my head in half on the steering wheel, and then it would whip back and fall off of my neck, over the back of the seat. And if it was a larger crash, then I would fly through the windshield or smash my face all over the dash. And all they'd have to do is hose it off and sell it to the next guy.
This kind of car isn't normally my kind of car, but I really ended up liking the Comet quite a lot. It's very honest and, at the same time, very cheap and stylish. And it's also cheap today. You might be surprised to learn that only a few years ago this car was sold for a measly $1,500. $1,500 for this car, and it's definitely not in bad shape either. But certainly back in the day when it was new, it was a cheap, economical, stylish, and comfortable car that the average American could buy on a budget and not hate themselves. That is, unless they wanted to turn a corner or pass somebody.